Most people fail to reach power not because the world is against them, but because they still believe the world plays by rules. In this video, we dismantle that illusion, and I will show you the precise psychological flaws that keep you powerless, and how the unethical rise above them. Power is never awarded. It is extracted from the weaknesses of others. The virtuous speak of fairness, morality, and cooperation. Yet they quietly bow to those who understand the darker mechanics of human behavior. If you wish to rise above the masses, you must first examine the instincts they hide, the fears they deny, and the selfish impulses they pretend not to possess. In this guide, we step into the shadows where real influence is born. We will not romanticize strength. We will dissect it. We will not condemn manipulation. We will understand it. And we will not praise morality. Unless it is useful, consider this your initiation into the uncomfortable truths that govern ambition, loyalty, and domination. What you do with this knowledge determines whether you remain ruled or become the ruler. Power does not begin with the strength you carry in your hands, but with the image others construct in their minds when they look at you. History is filled with men who appeared formidable long before they earned the right to be. Consider Caesar, who crafted an aura of inevitability even when his political footing was perilously fragile. People rallied to him because he looked like the man destined to win. And you, if you wish to understand the roots of power, must accept that perception is the battlefield where victories are secured long before reality ever arrives. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. How much of your identity is shaped by what others assume you are? And how much control have you surrendered simply because you waited for recognition instead of manufacturing it? The masses respond to symbols, confidence, and theater. Rarely do they respond to truth. Strength is a slow process, perception is instant, and in a world driven by instinct rather than reason, the instant advantage always triumphs. Look at the way rulers throughout history manipulated appearances to gain obedience. When the young Ottoman Prince Mehmet prepared to seize Constantinople, he understood that fear and admiration had to precede action. He paraded massive cannons, exaggerated troop numbers, and spread whispers of invincibility. The city fell not only to force, but to the psychological weight of expectation. His victory was written in the minds of his enemies long before it appeared on the battlefield. Tell me, do you create that kind of psychological pressure in your own life, or do you still hope people will notice your value on their own? Human beings, despite their claims to reason, make their judgments emotionally and justify them afterward. If you walk into a room uncertain of yourself, others sense it like blood in water. If you walk in with the posture, tone, and presence of someone who commands attention, people treat you as such long before you prove anything. You may call this unfair. I call it predictable, and predictability is a gift to anyone who seeks power. This is why illusions matter. A controlled image becomes armor, a strategic facade that shields you while you quietly build actual capability. Leaders who rely solely on their real strength fall quickly. Leaders who master the art of appearing strong endure long enough to develop true dominance. Think of the generals who kept their men loyal by projecting calm even when defeat loomed. They understood that panic is contagious, but so is confidence. If you allow others to see weakness before you have secured your position, you hand them the weapons they will one day use against you. You may wonder, is this deception? Perhaps. But deception is merely a tool, and tools are neutral until a purpose is attached to them. The question for you is whether you want to shape the world, or be shaped by those who already understand these rules. If perception guides loyalty, fear, respect, and opportunity, then refusing to control it is not virtue. It is negligence. Consider your daily life. The colleague who advances faster than you may not be more skilled. He may simply speak with calculated certainty. The social figure who commands attention may not be more interesting. She may simply understand how to appear untouchable. People gravitate toward the confident because confidence promises safety, direction, and power. Even predators in nature inflate themselves before striking. Should you not do the same? And yet the greatest mistake people make is believing that crafting perception requires grand theatrics. It doesn't. It requires consistency, a steady presence, a deliberate stillness, a refusal to reveal insecurity, a habit of speaking less and observing more, the slow construction of an image that others begin to believe in even when you remain silent. Silence, after all, allows others to fill the void with their own assumptions. Assumptions you can later use. So remember this: the world rarely waits for you to demonstrate your strength. It responds to the strength you project. If you wish to rise above the ordinary, stop waiting to be acknowledged and begin designing the perception you want people to kneel before. Because in the next stage of power, perception alone won't be enough. You will need to use the weaknesses of others to shape reality itself. Thus, human weakness is not an accident of nature. It is the silent architecture behind every rise to power. If you overlook it, you will forever play the game at a disadvantage. Those who ascend do so because they understand a simple truth: people are predictable, and predictability is the most exploitable resource in existence. Fear, vanity, insecurity, the craving for approval. These impulses guide human behavior far more reliably than logic ever will. And if you learn to see these impulses before others notice them in themselves, you gain the ability to direct their choices without raising suspicion. Ask yourself this: how many decisions in your life were shaped not by reason, but by emotion disguised as reason? And if this is true for you, what do you think happens inside the minds of those less self-aware? History repeatedly confirms that the master of human weakness becomes the master of outcomes. Consider the Borgias, who ruled not through brute strength, but through a chilling understanding of human fragility. They recognized that a man tempted by desire is easier to control than a man threatened by force. They observed that insecurity can be more binding than chains. So they used whispers, promises, and carefully crafted illusions to guide enemies into traps they willingly walked into. And you must learn to do the same, though your battlefield will be quieter. Offices, relationships, negotiations, social circles. Every person you meet reveals their weakness long before they speak it. It appears in their tone when they want approval, their posture when they feel inferior, their eyes when they seek validation, their silence when they hope not to be judged. Most people ignore these signals. The powerful harvest them. Take the example of a leader who subtly elevates one subordinate while ignoring another. The overlooked subordinate, desperate for recognition, begins volunteering more, working harder, seeking even the smallest nod of approval. He thinks he is acting autonomously, yet every move is a response to an unmet need, one the leader intentionally intensified. This is the essence of exploitation, to allow a person's own desires to become the rope they tie around themselves. Ask yourself, whose rope are you pulling, and who might be pulling yours? Modern manipulation rarely looks dramatic. It is subtle. It is disguised as encouragement, as opportunity, as concern. A manipulator might praise your potential just enough to keep you dependent on their approval. They might give you half the information you need, ensuring you return for the other half. They might withhold small rewards so you chase them harder, convincing yourself the effort is noble when it is merely convenient to them. People believe they are rational, but they are governed by cravings they refuse to acknowledge. And once you identify those cravings, security, admiration, guidance, belonging, you can predict their behavior with terrifying accuracy. You gain the ability to position yourself as the answer to their hidden fears. When people feel you resolve their anxieties, they offer loyalty freely. And loyalty given freely is easier to exploit than loyalty forced. But here lies the darker insight: the more insecure a person is, the more power they give away. And insecurity is everywhere, even in those who appear composed. The ambitious fear being surpassed. The intelligent fear being exposed. The charming fear losing attention. The loyal fear abandonment. If you learn to identify these fears, you will understand how to move people without pushing them, How to influence them without speaking, how to guide them without appearing to lead. That is the highest form of power, when others follow you and believe it was their idea. But this skill comes with a warning. Once you see how fragile human nature truly is, you can never unsee it. And once you begin using it, you will realize the next truth. The strongest players are those who master their own weaknesses. Loyalty is not a virtue, it is a transaction disguised as devotion. Those who understand power never assume loyalty is permanent, because they know it survives only as long as it serves the interests of the person offering it. Ask yourself, how many people in your life remain close to you out of principle, and how many stay because proximity to you benefits them? If you cannot answer honestly, you are already vulnerable. History is rich with examples of rulers who mistook loyalty for love. Consider Emperor Commodus, who believed the flattery of his advisors reflected genuine admiration. He failed to see that their praise was a shield they used to protect themselves until someone more promising appeared. And when that moment arrived, their allegiance dissolved instantly, proving that loyalty anchored to self-interest is a rope that snaps under pressure. You may think this is merely ancient history, yet the same pattern governs your modern life. A colleague who praises you endlessly will abandon you the moment aligning with someone else advances their career more efficiently. A friend who swears everlasting loyalty may quietly drift toward those who provide more validation. And a partner who promises stability might shift their allegiance when their insecurities find a new source of comfort. People do not betray because they are evil, they betray because their priorities evolve. The powerful understand this. They do not expect eternal loyalty. They structure relationships so loyalty becomes advantageous to maintain. They learn what others fear losing: status, approval, resources, belonging, and they ensure that allegiance to them preserves these things. This transforms loyalty from a moral pledge into a strategic choice. Think of the medieval lords who granted land to their vassals. This was not generosity. It was a calculated method to bind self-interest to obedience. A vassal who rebelled risked losing everything, while loyalty guaranteed their survival. In your own world, you must create similar dynamics. Offer opportunities that make loyalty more profitable than disloyalty. But here is the deeper truth. Loyalty becomes fragile when it is built on emotional bonds alone. Emotion shifts, fear fades, admiration decays. Only incentives persist. If you rely on affection to secure loyalty, you will eventually be disappointed. If you rely on negotiated benefit, you will rarely be surprised. Yet you must also recognize the danger of giving your own loyalty too freely. When you attach yourself to someone without examining their intentions, you give them the power to manipulate you. You create a dependency they can exploit, and dependency is the soil in which exploitation thrives. Ask yourself, to whom have you given loyalty that was never truly earned? Who benefits from your devotion while offering nothing substantial in return? And what would happen if you withdrew that loyalty? Would they attempt to persuade you to stay, or would they simply search for a new supporter? Your answers reveal more about power dynamics in your life than any philosophy book ever could. Psychologically, humans cling to loyalty because it offers the illusion of certainty. We want to believe that some people will never change. But power teaches a cruel lesson. Everyone changes when their incentives shift. The only question is whether you recognize the shift before it harms you. The most strategic leaders cultivate conditional loyalty. They reward it, monitor it, and anticipate its decline. They never assume loyalty today guarantees loyalty tomorrow. This awareness allows them to act decisively before betrayal unfolds. So remember this: loyalty is never a guarantee. It is a negotiation that must be continually maintained, reassessed, and renegotiated based on circumstance. If you treat it as anything else, you invite vulnerability. Before we move forward, consider one more truth. The people who appear the most loyal are often those who study you carefully, mapping your desires and weaknesses. They stay close not out of devotion, but to anticipate shifts in power. When the balance changes, they pivot instantly, revealing that their loyalty was merely strategic patience in their quiet observations. And as you master this understanding, you will be prepared for the next truth, that sometimes the most effective power does not come from loyalty at all, but from controlling the stories people believe about you. Morality is often spoken of as a boundary, a line that separates the virtuous from the corrupt. Yet in the theater of power, morality is nothing more than a mask, a tool to conceal intention, to manipulate perception, and to extract obedience without resistance. Ask yourself, how many acts you deem unethical in your life are tolerated or even praised when cloaked in virtue? And how many opportunities do you lose because you refuse to wear the mask others exploit with ease? History is rich with rulers who understood this truth. Consider Queen Elizabeth I. She cultivated an image of moral rectitude, of measured piety and restraint. Yet behind this carefully crafted facade, she engaged in espionage, sanctioned assassinations, and orchestrated wars to protect her throne. To the public, she was virtuous. To those who opposed her, she was merciless. The mask allowed her to navigate enemies and allies alike, controlling both through perception of virtue rather than displays of brute force. Would her power have endured had she discarded the mask and shown her full nature? Certainly not. You see, the masses respond to morality not because it is genuine, but because it signals predictability and safety. People are drawn to leaders who seem principled, who appear restrained by rules and codes, for these qualities suggest stability. But stability is never absolute. It is a tool. And if you can project morality while privately acting with unrestrained purpose, you create a weapon that most will not even recognize until it is too late. Consider the political genius of Cardinal Richelieu in 17th century France. He cultivated a reputation as a devout servant of the crown and the church, yet he manipulated alliances, sowed discord among rivals, and removed threats with surgical precision. Those who opposed him did so thinking him constrained by ethics, unaware that he had long since abandoned any illusion of moral restraint in pursuit of control. He used morality not as a compass, but as a lens through which others interpreted his power, deceiving them into compliance. Can you see the lesson? Power lies not in the rules themselves, but in the perception that you adhere to them. On a psychological level, morality functions as a cloak for the manipulator. Humans are wired to respond to signals of fairness, integrity, and honor. Even the most skeptical person assumes that visible virtue implies invisible restraint. And this assumption can be exploited. When you act in accordance with, or appear to act in accordance with, moral norms, you lower suspicion, you gain trust. You make others complicit in your strategy while they believe they are acting ethically themselves. But beware, the mask of morality is not a license for recklessness. It must be maintained with subtlety and consistency. If your actions reveal the gap between image and reality too early, you provoke resistance. The moment people perceive your utility of virtue as manipulation, loyalty crumbles, fear hardens, and alliances fracture. The most dangerous leaders, therefore, do not flaunt immorality. They hide it behind the behaviors others expect, never allowing perception to fracture until power is secure. Even in everyday life, the principle applies. A manager who presents as fair and principled can negotiate ruthlessly behind closed doors. A politician who speaks of transparency may manipulate legislation to their advantage. A friend who preaches honesty may still steer others' decisions subtly, ensuring outcomes that benefit themselves. Morality, when used strategically, becomes a lever, a method of bending human behavior without apparent force. Ask yourself, when you are judged for being too ambitious, is it ambition that disturbs them, or the absence of a mask they expect? When someone accuses you of manipulation, do they resist your strategy, or simply fail to see that they are being guided by it? Every act of ethical projection is an instrument in the silent orchestration of control. And so, the question is no longer whether you will act morally, but whether you will master morality as a tool, shaping it to serve your purpose. For those who cannot wield it, morality is a limitation. For those who can, it becomes a shield, a weapon, and a stage upon which power is performed flawlessly. But remember, this morality alone does not secure dominion. It is merely the stage, the lens, the veil through which you direct the world. The next step, the moment when perception of virtue transforms into unchallenged control, is far more delicate, far more ruthless, and far more decisive. What comes next is the mastery of information itself to control not only how others perceive your morality, but how they perceive reality, and through it, how they move, think, and obey. Control of information is the silent currency of power. It is not enough to act, you must dictate what others perceive about your actions, your intentions, and your environment. Ask yourself who truly decides the story of your life, yourself, or those who observe only what you allow them to see. The most formidable leaders are those who understand that reality is malleable, but perception is sacred. Control perception, and you control outcomes. History offers countless examples. Julius Caesar did not simply conquer Gaul, he wrote about it. Through his commentaries, he shaped how Rome viewed his victories, his enemies, and even his character. Citizens read his words and believed they understood the events firsthand, though the narrative was carefully curated to highlight his genius and downplay failure. By controlling information, he directed public opinion, secured loyalty, and neutralized dissent. Ask yourself, how much of what people believe about you is filtered through their own assumptions, and how much through your deliberate design? Consider also the Venetian Republic, masters of secrecy and subtle influence. Their spies were everywhere, yet they revealed only what served their strategy. Citizens and allies alike were led to believe the Republic was guided by consensus and tradition, while in reality, its power brokers manipulated decisions behind closed doors. Control of information allowed Venice to survive wars, betrayals, and shifting alliances for centuries. Notice the pattern: the visible reality is always a performance, the true power lies in the unseen currents. The psychology behind this is simple. Humans are creatures desperate for certainty. We crave explanations for events and patterns in behavior. When you provide an interpretation, or, more importantly, when you control the flow of information that allows them to form an interpretation, you shape not only what they think but how they act. Fear, trust, admiration, even obedience can be orchestrated if you control the narrative. How many arguments, rivalries, or crises could have been prevented or exploited if you had simply shaped perception first? Take the modern example of negotiation. A CEO releases selective data, highlighting growth in one area while downplaying decline in another. Investors, employees, and competitors all react to the information they have, unaware of what is withheld. The CEO's advantage does not come from inherent superiority, but from the ability to control understanding. Those who lack this skill are left reacting to events, never shaping them. Even in personal relationships, information wields power. People respond to what you reveal, what you conceal, and the timing of both. Share too much, and you lose leverage. Share too little, and you invite suspicion. But share strategically, and you guide choices without overt force. The most subtle form of control is the one that seems invisible. The individual believes they are acting freely, yet every step has been anticipated. Rulers have always understood this. Machiavelli himself advised princes to appear virtuous while acting pragmatically, to seem merciful, faithful, and honest while being ruthless when necessary. The prince who fails to manage the flow of information, who allows rumor or perception to dictate reality, is already defeated. The careful distribution of truth, half-truth, and silence becomes a weapon more deadly than armies. So, let us reflect: who benefits when truth is fragmented, controlled, or delayed? Who suffers when it is exposed at the wrong moment? And where do you stand within that dynamic? Power favors those who are both patient and strategic, who understand that people rarely act on reality. They act on the reality they perceive. Yet here lies the dangerous edge. Controlling information is not merely about withholding facts. It is about anticipation, about shaping interpretations before questions even arise. It is about planting suggestions, guiding attention, and framing outcomes so that others act in accordance with your design, believing they do so freely. The mind is a battlefield, and information is the ammunition. As you begin to master this art, remember influence is invisible until executed. People will attribute outcomes to chance, skill, or morality, but not to the subtle orchestration that produced them. And when you wield this power with precision, you will find that reality bends not because of force, but because of perception. And as we move to the next stage, consider this. Controlling information allows you to shape reality. But the ultimate mastery comes when you control not only what people know, but what they believe others know. The next layer of power is far more dangerous, far more decisive, and far more rewarding. Are you prepared to manipulate the very truths that bind the world? Power is not seized openly. It is whispered, suggested, insinuated. It grows in the shadow of perception, in the quiet manipulation of desire and fear. Ask yourself, how many influence battles have you lost because you relied on force instead of subtlety? How many people act against your interests, unaware they were guided there by your own hand? The most dangerous mastery is invisible mastery, the kind where others believe they are free while you shape every step. You now understand the rule. Control what people see, what they fear, and what they hope for, and you control them without their knowledge. Fear, loyalty, and admiration are tools, not rewards. Morality is a mask, not a limitation. Information is a weapon, not a gift. If this lesson resonates with the strategist in you, act. Comment below your thoughts. Show me how you would wield this knowledge. Subscribe and embrace the shadows with every Machiavellian strategy we reveal. Share this with those who would benefit, or suffer, from understanding the subtle art of invisible control. The world bows to those who govern the minds of men before they even know it. Will you be among them?